Welcome to SNC podcast episode 30, which is crazy that we already hit 30. We got our artist for ink, and he's an artist all around. He'll tell more about that later. I'm Greg of Zero Nova Comics. I'm founder, co-founder, and creator of our whole universe. And Dylan, introduce
I'm
yourself.
the other co-founder, and I'm the tech guy and editor-in-chief.
And Adam, introduce yourself.
So, guys, my name is Adam Fields. I'm the artist on ink and a bunch of other titles.
Yeah, you got one of the titles is Prowl. So can you give like a little elevator pitch of that?
Yeah, so it's basically what if the wolf in sheep's clothing is there to protect the herd? That's kind of the whole premise of it. But he's basically a werewolf. He's a vigilante, and he turns anytime he wants, basically by this stone. Let me see if I can find a picture of one. Yeah, there he is, right there. And he's got a little stone that he wears. That's the whole plot, is where that stone came from and why does it do what it do. So he's unearthing some stuff that was supposed to stay long gone and buried, and it's kind of ticking the wrong people off. So that's where we're going.
That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I know you were gonna add it to the platform at some point when you
actually so it's funny you said that. I actually have my tab pulled up to get to work on that. I had a whole bunch of stuff come in over the weekend, so I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna knock this out since I'm not gonna ask my wife to do something on Mother's Day. That would just be rude, right?
Yeah. Besides Prowl, you do like a bunch of commissions and all that other stuff. And see like Venom and crazy stuff.
So many things.
Yeah. What got you like interested in our comic ink?
Well, yeah, basically, you sold me on the idea that it's, this tattoo that has kind of some powers to it, and I like the whole horror genre. So you had me at that. I mean, if I know that there's going to be some mystical stuff going on, and there's a some sort of magic element to it, that's just great visuals right there that I'm also I'm honored to be a part of. So I think the whole application process was, how do I draw Shane, and I that was it. And you told me a little bit about like, hey, this key tattoo is key. So basically that's what I focused on, and that was it. When I read the script, I'm like, okay, this is going places. So I'm actually anxious for 2, 3, and on.
Yeah.
I know my 7-year-old, he watched me draw a bunch of it, and he saw the cover yesterday during our online con, and he goes, "When's 2 coming out?" Because he wants to see more stuff. So you guys are getting hounded left and right.
Yeah, I didn't I was hoping that our main story was gonna get hounded more, but it's confusing for some. Like my girlfriend's dad was confused by like the story because there's so many plots, but the problem with the first issue of the Seer Chronicles was I sent it to the artist before the script was ever edited. So yeah, so we did it that way. We did it for ink in a way, but
a little bit.
It wasn't as bad, I don't think, as
it's more easily repairable.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing a little Photoshop can't fix.
Yeah. So moved a couple panels around, and then Dylan's brother Dave said like maybe we would like change another panel or something, flip it or whatever. But besides that, it's awesome. Like my brother, when he read it, he was one of the first to read it. He's like, so like when's the second issue come out? And I was like, it's like time and money to make a comic,
right?
And he's like, well, how much? And I'm like, you gonna pay for me to do that?
Yeah. Are you looking to invest? I mean,
and then I start
this.
Yeah, I like started to add everything up, and he's like, really, to make a comic book? I was like, yeah, it's not like, unless if I was the artist and everything, but
that is such a a common like shock in this industry. So, I have the honor of being on multiple boards for trade schools and stuff. And the one that I went to, so I get pulled aside by parents a lot about their students. Like, hey, they're like real talk with me. Okay, I'm the dad. I'm like, all right, let's do this because I know the questions that are coming. I've dealt with this my entire life, and it goes, hey, is there really a career in doing this, or should I just kind of push them one way and let them do this as a hobby? And I said, well, you're talking to a guy who does this for a living, so slightly insulting. But I tell them, I said, you have to get your mind that it's not art. Like, you're not creating just pretty pictures. Your guys' whole thing is a brand. The Seer Chronicles, that's a brand, So it's commercial art. That's where once you start using those type of lingos that, it's maybe sequential or you're hiring someone for a cover, but essentially it's just to sell a product. Your character's a product. Batman's a product. It's not just a cool character. His logo is literally on everything, and that's what they're trying to sell, and that's what you guys are trying to do. So whenever I explain it, merchandise, exactly, man. So, you want to slap that logo and that title on everything you can, because that's ultimately what's going to bring in. Yeah, the comic books might get you some ROI, but ultimately, whatever, like, they're really into it. You slap that on a shirt, you slap it on a mug, you slap it on an ink pen or whatever, it's going to sell because they're diehards. And I've seen it even with just Prowl. So, yeah, anytime someone starts talking like that, just switch their mindset a little bit and say it's commercial art. It's not like traditional. It's not going in an art gallery. It's going in someone's hand that is going to try to buy a product later.
Yeah.
I just pictured Spaceballs, the flamethrower.
Right?
Kids love this one.
My grandma, she's old, so she asks the same question every 5 seconds. But you want to play Scrabble? No. She's like, so what do you actually want to do? And then I'm like, my comic book company. And she's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I was like, what? Okay, yeah. And then I'm like, no, that's literally like what I want to do. So like I'm slowly moving towards like doing that. So we finally got like a team of people on our platform, like other creators, to form this team and like to be a collaborative. And that's actually working out pretty well. I figured out the people that don't care as much, they only care about themselves. So I'm like, oh, okay, like you don't want to grow as a team, you're not going to end up growing. So
yeah, that's the hard part at any like base level of a company is you find out who's in it for the wrong reasons. If they're behind you, that's awesome, but if they're just trying to use you as a stepping stone, that sucks.
Yeah, I don't care if you are on our platform and then on others, because that's like the one thing. We're super flexible people. So not physically, I can't.
Like yoga
bend
flexible.
No, I can't. I haven't touched my toes in years, man. I get it.
I used to be able to put my leg over my head. That was like when I was 4 years old, probably. So
I see that happened to me, but I wrestled and it was forced and it wasn't comfortable. Yeah,
it was unpleasant.
Yeah, so I'm like, no, I want to do my comics. Right now, I work security. Basically, I just watch TV but yeah, I watch TV and look at cameras. It's basically what I do. And I walk around a building twice. But I can actually work on this stuff to a certain degree. Like I can write. Like I was writing Ink, like the second issue of Ink. I was writing that while I was there, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm gonna write this since like people want it. So that'll be like an announcement soon, even though like it was announced on PajamaCon, but that's whatever. I don't care.
Yeah, I like to give people a little heads up. Because
Yeah.
most of it, man, I'm telling you, there was a guy, he picked it up. He was trying to find me at C2E2, and I wasn't there this year. And because he was like, man, you got number 2, and I'm like, no, like he for some reason he thought so. But the people that have got it, they're already excited for it. So I'm genuinely excited for it because I think it's a fun story, and I know I've grown since then doing that. I've done a couple other books for Antarctic Press and a couple other indie stuff. So I've learned how to speed up my process. So once I get the script, I mean, we're going to knock out some cool stuff quickly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know if I said it to you, but ever since you've been our artist, but I've said it to the first artist that we had, but he messed up a little bit. And we didn't have the
A little
game
bit.
created yet. Yeah. So I don't know if you ever heard us talking about our video game that we're like releasing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the video game coincides with our comics in a way to make it congruent. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Sure.
So if somebody runs down this certain street, it'll be the same exact street in the game and in the comics. So continuity flows.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to make missions for the video game, so that was fun. I still have to make more, but it's like the video game is the backstory to the comics, and I told my friend Scott that's making the game, like, I don't have that much developed around the city for Ink yet, but you're gonna have to make the city for that at some point soon. And when he makes that, there'll be elements from the game that we get a picture of that, like his tattoo shop or whatever. I can literally go to his tattoo shop, take a picture of it, if I want. And we just take a picture of that from the game, and then all you have to do is draw exactly what's in the picture. That's super simple.
That would be like, you have no idea how much gold that is to me.
Yeah.
Because Google can only go so far. I've actually went as far as Street View, finding locations, panning it out, and then screenshotting it just to get the right angle, because I couldn't find pictures that I wanted. And I live in a small town. I can't just go to a downtown and get pictures of a skyscraper. We have cornfields. All right. So yeah, totally.
You just make the corns like little buildings.
That's right. Silhouette it like, all right, that stock is now stock market. That's what that is.
Yeah. So I told our new artist, Daniel, I think his last name is Gorman. I think that's how you say it. He's also in Ohio, and he actually has he like runs 2 comic shops, which is crazy. He runs 2 comic shops. He's an artist. I think he does more than just pencils and inks. I think he does other stuff too. And he works on like Rick and Morty trading cards or something. And I was like, that's awesome.
That is cool.
Yeah. So I said that
I
too.
finally finished watching season 3 like a couple weeks ago.
I haven't ever finished that yet. That's the 3rd season. But I saw the Pickle Rick episode. Yeah, I saw that episode. Yeah. So I started talking to him, and then like I'm like, oh, can you do like the character designs or whatever? Kind of like what I had you do with Ink, except he did like almost every character that is going to be in the next issue of the Seer Chronicles. And then I was like, wow.
Yeah, one of the things that we were getting them from our map though, which will hopefully be awesome for Ink, is the like one of the things was the skyline. So it's not a random skyline. It's actually our skyline, which is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And then basically, like after we finished writing editing the script for that one, we went to our game designer and was like, all right, we need this restaurant, we need this dock, and we need this house. And like we just need like the area around them developed so that the background for every scene is visible. And then as we're like working with the artist, like we're basically like, okay, here's this scene, we need this one drawn, right, and from this angle. And so like that's what we're hoping to do for all our comics, is be able to get like an entire that was actually like the original idea for the game. Like it wasn't meant to be a game, it was meant to just build a 3D world so that we could give them to artists. And then we found out he's building it in a game development platform, and we're like, can you just like turn that into a game? He goes, yeah, of course. And then hence the game has been born.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've worked with a company out of Spain who is working in developing a game for their book. It just seems to be a huge trend right now. Is because let's face it, that's what's hot. I mean, I find myself going on YouTube and pulling up people streaming games. I watched someone play the Resident Evil 3 remake. So I didn't have to. I could get stuff done while watching them get frustrated, kind of yelling at them like a football player, like you would a football game. Like, why did you go down that way? That was stupid, Why did you dodge?
It's like I've never run a yard in my life carrying a football, but I could have done that better.
Right? All you have to do is knock him to the ground. How hard could that be? Yeah.
I have never played any of the Resident Evil games or seen any of the movies.
You're not missing much on the movies, let me tell you. The games are awesome. And then I was very disappointed with the movies. I hope they remake. And there's always been rumors that Netflix is going to be doing a series. I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it.
I'd like to see Netflix do it. That'd be interesting. They've been doing with their little remakes or their renditions of various things that have already been made or turned into shows now. Like, they're definitely doing a good job.
Lock and Key.
That was good.
I haven't seen that yet. I saw the freaking trailer for that and it looked phenomenal.
I didn't
know. My wife. Go ahead.
I didn't know that the guy that created that he is the son of Stephen King.
Really?
Yeah. He goes by a different name, I think. So he's not like outshined by his dad because he would be outshined.
Yeah, like Stephen Prince.
So his name is Joe Hill, but like his actual last name is King.
Huh?
I don't know if his first name
is he joking?
Oh.
But yeah, I never read any of that, but like watching it was just awesome. Like me and my girlfriend actually got like into that show, and I'm like, that was just, like really good. Yeah.
How long are the episodes? Because I definitely wanted to get into that.
How long are the episodes?
Yeah, they're like half hour, or they're like.
I'd say they're about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're like long, like the typical like HBO style show.
Yeah, I would say.
I don't know if there's 13 episodes or not though, but
I can't remember how many episodes. I know my wife, she's not a comic reader. She proofreads my stuff, and she gets into the the screenwriting side of things when I'm scripting. But here on Netflix, I mean, she's watched Lock and Key. She's watched Umbrella Academy, and then we just watched The Boys over on Amazon. And little did she know, like, she goes, "These are awesome." I'm like, "Yeah, they're comics." She goes, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "See,
there's a lot of great shows that are comics that people don't realize."
That's why, the indie market is huge, and I think people need to realize that. And there's a lot of people out there scared to put their name out. I was terrified to launch my own title because to me it was almost overwhelming, because I look at the comic rack and there's thousands of titles out there. I'm like, how am I supposed to get into this slice of that pie? Like, I'm just going to be a little tiny wedge, and I still am, but people are kind of turning away from the big ones. They're collecting exclusive covers just for the artwork, but they're not really diving into the story. They're turning to people like us that write original stories. And I think that's why this is now the time to launch something like what you guys are doing with your world. And it's awesome that you're going to be tying it to a game. So not only can they read about it, they can live it.
Yeah. And we had another person from our platform on, and he thought it was like a 2D scroller. And I was like, oh, well, that'd be kind of cool. But actually, his comic would be pretty awesome as like a 2D scroller, because his comic is called Shotgun Samurai. And yeah, and it would just like make sense. Like Dylan was like, wow, your game would actually be really good as like a 2D scroller. He's like, oh, maybe. But yeah, like no
website. Didn't mean to cut you off. I'm gonna message one of my instructors at the trade school, because one of her students found this website where you can develop free 2D scrollers. You build your sprites and all the animations and the enemies, and you basically code it, and it's very basic. The kid had no background doing it, but that's what he wanted to do for his senior project, and he developed a side-scrolling game from the start menu to a couple levels.
Nice. It's like RPG Maker, but 2D scroller. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and it was fascinating because he was able to show us the behind the scenes of, well, this is the jump animation, this is the death animation, this is the, he had, so it was like based on all candy. So he had peppermints that were like boulders, but he showed the rolling animation, and then them breaking when you destroyed it. I mean, it was in depth for a high school student. So I'll have to look into that and send you guys the link just to have him play around with it, because it's just a quick color the pixels to make the pixel art, and it was fascinating.
That's cool.
That's definitely very cool.
Yeah, like when we were talking about our game on that episode, he's like, oh wow, it's like actually like 3D and stuff. I'm like, yeah, it's like Grand Theft Auto meets The Sims. It's more Grand Theft Auto because of like the free roam kind of stuff that you can do. There's quests and stuff, but I still have to figure out side quests and everything. There's a guy that wants to add his comic character to our comic universe, and there's a few that want to do that, but trying to add just one is already, I'm like trying to figure it out in my head, like how it's gonna work. His character works well because it's like Indiana Jones, but like supernatural kind of mix. So
like Indiana Jones, like the new ones.
So I'm like, oh wow, this could actually work, because like the main thing the whole Seer Chronicles story revolves around is this like object. I'm not gonna say what it is, but there's this object, and his character could be like a person that like fits the role to explain more what it is. But I did explain that same object in ink too, so you'll know what the object is once you start reading.
Love it.
And there's actually a lot of action in the second issue.
Cool.
Unless if Dylan edits it out. But
yeah, I like to take his work and just be like, no.
Yeah. See, I like to draw monsters and cool stuff like that. So I'm anxious to see what's in this one. I don't know. I truly don't know what's coming. So when people ask, I can genuinely say, I don't know. I get excited because I get to learn just as much as they do. I don't get most of the stories I hear, unless they tell me specifically, hey, this panel, make sure this is in the background because that's going to play into 4 issues in the future. We want them to look back. So
yeah.
But I don't know what's happening, and I kind of like that because I can play stupid. And I get excited about it when I see it. So yeah.
That's what kind of hooked somebody else. Like I put a post of ink, like you can get this now, and then I just said like a little elevator pitch for it, and someone commented saying, wow, there's like a lot of mystery into that, because like I really don't know what would happen next. And like that's kind of the point. I want you to read it.
Yeah. That's the whole idea of every story. And whenever my wife would read an issue of Prowl, I would it would always end on either a cliffhanger or a super exciting part, and she'd turn around, just look at me and goes, are you serious? I'm like, I guess you gotta wait now, don't you? Even though I have them all scripted, I always just let her read the book as the artwork is done.
Yeah. I was confused on the ending for the second issue of Ink. Dylan will definitely help me out with that once he looks at it, but there is I highlighted like an alternate ending because I don't know which ending he would like, and what he thinks would work better. I can't say anything.
Isn't that tough?
Yeah, but there's this one awesome ending, but then there's this other ending that's like both will leave you on a cliffhanger, but
they're both gonna piss somebody off.
Yeah. I like cliffhangers to write. I don't like experiencing them.
No.
Like firsthand, like Game of Thrones or something. You're like, oh, so that person might die. Okay.
Plus, hanging from a cliff is kind of tiring.
It is. Well, the worst cliffhanger ever, and I think they did it poorly, was The Walking Dead. The Negan kill.
Can't watch that show.
I still think the worst was The Sopranos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I said that like the ending of
like, are you
Sopranos
gonna end the whole show, the whole series like that? you and your stupid art.
I just got done rewatching Dexter because Showtime was like free for a little while, and I was watching that at work. It was awesome.
He's like, I'm keeping this place safe by watching serial killers.
Yeah, and then it scared.
You gotta get the mind of them.
Yeah, well, I am writing a serial killer comic, which if you want to be the artist for that too, you can. But that won't be for a while, just because I was like trying to write it, and I was on page, I thought it was 30, but I looked back at it and it was like 29, and I was like, ugh. I don't know where I want to go with that. So I wrote a bunch of notes. So I stopped writing the actual story, and then I wrote a bunch of notes to figure out like what he's gonna actually say to certain people. And
Yeah, that's one of the things I started having Greg do as I was like editing through the comics. I was like, all right, like this person who's kind of a side character, like what's their whole friggin' life story? Because I want to know what they're thinking right now based on something else in their life. Like, are they a parent? Like, are they going to protect, are they going to be more protective around kids? Are they not going to jump into danger because they know they have a family to go back to? Is maybe their family lives on that street, so he's more willing to jump into danger? Like, like just interesting stuff like that I like to know more about that. And then the cool thing we're gonna do with that is have a Wikipedia for all of our characters, and as the characters get introduced and more is brought about, told about them, things that may never be seen in the comic directly will actually have details in the back end for anyone who wants to dive deeper.
Yeah, I've talked to the author that I do her covers for. Her and I talked deeply about that exact thing with character development. She has, because I'm still learning how to properly flesh out characters. I can do action like no other. I can pinpoint and be like, all right, I know this is the scene I want this to look like. And then she asked the toughest question ever. Well, why? Oh, that why question. Yeah, because it looks cool, but there's
I don't even like drawn.
Right? I've been there. But yeah, so we go through this little exercise of developing these characters, and she even gets down to like their favorite ice cream is vanilla and chocolate chip, and I'm like, will you ever see that in a book? She goes, no, but I know that. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, so so now I catch myself like writing stuff for these characters, but like that he wouldn't say that because that's not his.
That's not what
he would absolutely do this, right? He would absolutely do this because that's his character flaw, and it does help, really fleshing them out and treating them as if they're a real person. So I think having a Wikipedia for your character, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, I always loved that if I wanted to learn about something like, even if it was just to, prove somebody wrong or prove myself wrong in an argument about like, oh, I wonder like about Spider-Man, this thing that happened like in one of the, and like you go to Wikipedia and there's like a huge ass list of all the stuff he's ever been a part of. And so the cool thing is the backstory isn't always all of his comics. It's like a collection of random things that you could pick up. So like, one of our panels might just have like a wallet fall open, but if we know that the guy has a family, there's probably going to be a photo of his family in there, right? So like that little detail is important. And then like I was saying, like there's a cop in one of our comics that if what is he going to do based on the fact that he might have a family, right? So knowing that is very important. And not necessarily their favorite flavor of ice cream unless it's relevant eventually, even if it's only tangentially, but even something simple like what's their favorite color, and maybe all of a sudden you notice that every panel he's ever in, he always has an orange tie because orange is his favorite color, right? Like that it can be relevant and you can make it relevant. Like
let me tell you, that kind of stuff is also really helpful to the artist because then it takes the guessing out of us, because I've read some really bad scripts, okay, where I literally have to fill in the gaps, and then if I didn't read the writer's mind, they kind of slapped my hand. I said, hey, I'm going off of what you said,
like, hey, Greg's right here.
No, that was actually one of the good scripts. That's there's one, he literally just sends me scenes without dialogue. That's what, right? So it's called the Marvel way, where the artists create, and I'm like, that's such a cop out for writers. I'm sorry. You could just spell out scenes and then make the artist do the hard work and plan the scenes, and then you fill in the gaps with no.
The reason why that works in like a company like Marvel is there's groups around each other that can discuss this stuff.
Yeah.
But if it's like a solo artist trying to like figure out your comic, like double your rates. Like
you're right. Yeah, because
you're part of the writer now. Like it's
I've actually started turning down jobs where I don't have a full script just because it is too much of a hassle.
I would literally just like double my rates for stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
I do like web development, and I'll send out this what I call a web design brief, and
Mhm.
essentially I have a basic idea off of that brief of how much I'll end up charging. And the less that they answer, the more that I'll charge, because I know that I'm going to have to spend more time figuring out what the hell this person was trying to get at when they're like, oh yeah, it's just this little thing I need you to do. And it's like, oh, you mean you want a custom made plugin that hasn't even been invented yet? Yeah, no.
Right.
I'll
So
never do that.
the other side of my business is graphic design. So I work with companies and design logos and stuff. It kind of breaks up the illustration. It makes me appreciate the comic work more because I deal with that exact same thing. They're like, I just want a small logo. So I actually made a post about there is no such thing as a small logo because that logo is literally going to go on to every single thing that you own for that company. That is the biggest thing. It may just be a couple circles with the word under it, but that is going to go everywhere. So you should take that the most serious. And that's why you should be paying the most for your logo. There you go.
He's got the coaster too.
Yeah. Mouse pad.
Nice. Is
That's
that a mouse
awesome.
pad? Nice.
Mouse pad. So, and then hat,
Yeah.
it's literally everything. So yeah, I totally I like the idea of sending out a brief for that. I have the same sort of approach, and I tell them, hey, we're only going to get 3 revisions for free. After that, I'm going to start charging because now you're eating into my time, and I should have your guys' stuff done by now. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've learned that it helps. Like I came up with the like what questions to ask over time, and like for like because I've done logo design too for a few companies, and slowly I've just realized like, oh, I should probably ask this, oh, I should probably ask this, I should clarify this, and I just kind of keep adding to the list so that I can get better when I go to them. Because like if I don't ask a certain question and then I charge a certain amount and then they've implied something, I'll just bite the bullet, and I've already taken on the job. But
yeah,
I do make sure that the very next time that I do that, that's right on the top of the list. Make
you
sure.
cover your bases. Yeah, because uh, I've been asked numerous times, how can you charge that much for that? If you're able to draw this that quickly, that's making like $100 an hour. I'm like, but you're not paying me for that. You're paying for the experience. Yeah, that whole time, because every time you're doing it, you're learning.
Yeah,
So
there's
you're
a great
paying for that.
metaphor about a locksmith that so say you lock your keys in your car and you call a locksmith, and he pulls out this really extravagant contraption, and it takes him like an hour to pry your car open, and he gets your keys and he's like, that'll be $150. Like, and you hand it over, and then some other guy comes over, and in 15 seconds he grabs the same keys. He's like, that's $150. And you're like, that's outrageous. And it's like, oh, that I saved you an hour and 15 minutes. Is that the part that was outrageous? Like,
Right?
yeah, a lot. That's why whenever this is good for any artist, honestly, you should always be pricing on value.
Mm-hmm.
It's if you're making it like if someone goes, hey, I need this artwork done tomorrow, like you can charge more because it's more valuable to them, and like they can go ahead and go, oh, I'll just go pay someone else. It's like, well, then obviously you don't need it by tomorrow. Yeah, like, that like there's quality, there's speed, there's so many things that you can collect into. What's that?
Quality.
Yep, exactly, yeah. And the whole point is that like you have to make you have to be a good salesman if you're going to be a freelancer in the art world, because you have to understand that people aren't going to see how valuable it is until first off until they get the product, but also the fact that they're not an artist. They don't know how much time you spent to do that, or how long it took you to get that good, or how many people are that good, right? Like if you're in the top 50% of artists, right, like you kind of got to go with where you're at. But if you slowly get better and better, you have to be able to express that. That's why a really good example for the logos, like I only charge, I think, I don't know, something like $150 for a logo, but I'm also not like, that's not like the only thing that I do, right? Like I'm not like an amazing logo designer. Like I'm a decent logo designer. I have graphic design. I've used it for, actually probably a decade now, Jesus. But yeah, I've done it for a while, but it's not one of my primary focuses. But I also know logo designers that charge $18,000 for a logo, right? Now,
Right.
when they do that, they also do other things though. Like they'll make 6 renditions of a logo, and they'll put it on everything from a t-shirt to a flag to the side of your building that they went and sent a photographer and took a picture of it,
Mm-hmm.
3D rendered it into a, Photoshop and popped up your logo and extruded it. Like, like there's a lot you can do to add value beyond just providing the art that you were asked for. And, sometimes it seems simple, but like that's how you can really show what you're worth, is that portfolio work of what you've done for others, as well as the extrapolation of what you've done for someone else.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, that's the challenge, is finding that value. And, for me, it's weird because I've only been doing comics professionally now for 4 or 5 years, illustrating full time. I've been illustrating since I was 3 years old. I've been doing graphic design for almost 15 years now. And it's weird because now I feel like I finally have shifted, and you never really know when it's time to up your prices or what you're worth. Cause I still see the people that I look up to in the art field, and I see their price, and I'm like, man, or their quality. And I'm like, I'm still looking after them. But then I've been told, like, I'm in their realm now. I'm actually like up with them. I'm like, I don't see it, but other people do. So you have to also look at your fan base and listen to others and take what they say, because you're always going to be hard on yourself. I'm never going to think that I'm like the best out there, because I see all the failures throughout the day where everyone else gets to see the best.
Well, it's like when you lose weight, like you don't realize you're like the last person to realize you lost weight unless you're,
Right.
tracking it every single day. And, it's pretty hard to track the quality of your artwork with a number. It's not
It's
really
true.
scalable. And, that's definitely something that, because the other way, like the thing that I started doing was for like web design, for example. That's probably my best example. Like the very first website I built was free. Second one, free. Third one, free. Then I charged a few $100. I'm like, oh, are they gonna pay me? Cool. And then I kept getting better. I'm taking online courses. I charge a few more, and now it's like, if I'm going to spend my time building a website and I now know how long it's going to take, I'm like, it's going to be a couple $1,000s, like minimum, right?
Easily.
And I can easily charge it because I have proof that I'm of my quality, and I've been paid that before, so I have the confidence to sell that. And I can also
Exactly.
turn it away if it's not enough. Like I've been offered, I almost had a web design gig, and it would have been the highest one I'd been paid, but I evaluated everything they were requesting, and I'm like, no, like I'm gonna be miserable trying to build this way too quickly, and not without the resources I'm going to need, without the clarity. I'm like, and you want to pay me like this? I'm like, no. And they're
Right.
like, what if we give you this? I'm like, no. I'm just like, I don't need it. And
Yeah.
like that's kind of the nice thing, is that if you're freelancing, you can just say no. It's okay. But the one thing that, as a artist, if you're trying to make sure that that's like your full income, then the two things you got to do is, one, slowly up your price as you get busy. And if you're not busy, get better at marketing yourself so that you're so busy you have to go, hey, listen, my entire schedule's full this week. If you want me, I'm going to charge a little bit more.
Yeah. These are all commissions that came in this weekend.
See, exactly. And that's the point. So that,
Yeah.
like, from that alone, that's where you go, hey, you know what? It's going to be an extra 10% more this next couple months. Play it out, like, because basically, like, the goal is to, you're going to have, if you charge nothing, you might get tons of work, but you're also going to make barely any money. So you want to slowly increase the price until you level out your work.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be surprised. Like, and the goal is basically to weed it out until only the best clients are paying you, and they're paying you what you want, like what feels amazing to get paid, where it's like, it's a joy to do it.
Yeah. I've had that talk with a bunch of bigger artists. That's one of the best things. I love going to Comic Cons. I really miss them right now because like everything has been dead. But I really, really enjoy going to those because I will talk to the professionals, and I'll talk to the ones that I look up to, or the ones that have been doing it for years. And we always talk, price was always one that I struggle with. And one of them, the best advice I was given was, look at the guy who, Neil Adams, I believe, has like the most expensive prices right now in the comic industry. And you look at Neil, and then look at the
Like
people
your
that,
firstborn son.
right, pretty much.
3
And
pages.
yeah, he said, look at the people that you look up to. As long as you don't feel like you're, stepping on their toes or overpricing, but you also have to value yourself. He goes, there's always like at this one bar, he said, this is how he always described his price. He said, there's always that entrance that everyone can be in, it's general admission, but then there's that VIP room. He goes, you want to get to that VIP room because then you can also see the backstage, the extra access. He goes, so you're always working towards something, because if everyone can get it, then you're not exclusive. He goes, you want to make yourself exclusive, but not so exclusive that it turns everybody off. You want to be in that sweet spot where there's still room to grow, but not everybody can get it, because then it loses its value. So,
well, that's why I definitely recommend, like, you should like, for whatever skill you have, whether it's art or programming, like, you should always be getting better at it. And then the goal is that tangentially, or you're not perpendicular, parallel. There we go. No way, same. But in parallel, you should be getting better at business and marketing yourself, because even if you're the greatest artist in the world, if you've only got one piece of artwork a week, like, you can't really justify charging a huge amount of money. Like, it just, you might lose that one client you have. But if you're constantly getting people in, you have the legitimate scarcity. There's a book by Robert Cialdini called Influence, and it talks about how you can be persuaded to do things, and scarcity is very powerful. So the point is that if your art is already something somebody desires, and then suddenly enough people desire it that your time is being limited, you can now charge more for that time. And that's how you get better paying clients. But it starts by marketing the crap out of yourself, because if nobody knows you exist, you're not worth anything. Like, people need to know who you are.
That was the tough part in the beginning. When I first started doing cons, I remember my first con, I got commissioned. It was a $50. I made $50 at the show total. And like, I thought I was on top of the world. Like, my wife, we're like, we're going out to eat tonight.
We're going to Vegas.
We're going to Applebee's.
Right. And, but I mean, after that, and then we finally hit the triple digits at one show. And then all of a sudden, one time we started hitting, 4 digits. We're like, okay. Like, we look back to that first time, we're so humbled at that. And we're like, wow, this is amazing that how things are happening, because now I have, the experience, because I know what to offer. I know what collectors are looking for. And, I also know how to the biggest thing is I also know how to give back. And I think that's really huge for artists. And I think a lot of people need to take value in. Not only is it take, charge, but you also have to give back. So yesterday I did my pajama con. That's my little quarantine online show that I put on. But I offered up 2 things. The last time I did it, I offered up a free sketch. And all you had to do to enter was post a picture of you and your family in your pajamas, just having fun, enjoying either a board game or even just watching the stream. It doesn't matter. Just want to see you guys enjoying family time. And then I gave back a free sketch of their choice. Yesterday, I'm offering up a $100 Amazon gift card and a slabbed Prowl first print issue 1. So yellow label CGC. So, I mean, you have to really know your market, but you also have to value those fans that you do have, and always offer up something that you can give away, and just sort of say thank you. That's always my favorite thing to do, is just say thanks to everyone who's supported me.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, a lot of creators, like indie creators, they're not the best at marketing, and I wasn't trying to be cocky when I was doing that. We did like a Zoom meeting with creators that team thing that we have on our platform. We had a good amount of people like showed up for that, which was surprising to me. I was like, wow, you guys all are pretty awesome people. Some couldn't make it because they had to work or something. But this one guy took it the wrong way of like, so you guys are all here because you suck at social media. And I said that as a joke, but like, he didn't get my sense of humor. because he doesn't really know me, which I understand. But like he got like offended by it, and I was like, and then Hector of New Leaf Comics, he's like the art director, or whatever over there. And he's like, nope, he's just joking. Like everybody laughed, like, oh yeah, I do suck at social media, and like saying that he was
He's
offended by that.
joking too.
Yeah, and if you're offended by that, then deep
you
down
probably are bad.
somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, it's an insecurity, which means either you're bad at it or you're insecure, and both of those are problems that need to be resolved. So,
Right.
Yeah, so we're trying to help them grow up their own social media while also promoting a platform. And you can easily do that just by tagging us and being like, go to SierraNovaComics.com, and then
that's why I'm excited to, finally be able to sit down once I get all my notes and stuff taken care of from yesterday. I've got to get Prowl on that platform.
Yeah, because we don't have as much horror stuff on there that I want, because I really love horror. One honest thing is I didn't know there was a such thing as a horror comic book until I saw Afterlight Comics, I think, yeah. And I saw Wendigo Wood, and it's on my shelf up there. And then there's another guy, Joel Rodriguez. He was on our not on our platform. That'd be awesome. He was on our podcast, and he has Dusk County Chronicles, and I get every one of those. Anything horror related is like, definitely I'm gonna buy that. So
yeah,
having like Prowl on there's like 9 issues or something. So
yeah, there's 7 right now.
Yeah.
But we're switching from the indie or the single issues, because this I'm finding it's very, very hard to manage myself, and I think that all just comes with time and experience, and kind of reading into what people want. I'm very impatient. I want to, Netflix has spoiled me. They give you, here's the entire season. We will binge watch it in a week, and then we will be upset because we have to wait a year for the next one. So we're waiting for what is it? The Haunting of Hill House. They're doing the 2nd season of that, and we're like excited because I loved that series. So I'm like, man, now I'm like gotta wait. So
it's actually funny. One of our podcasts, we specifically talked about how Netflix kind of ruins the water cooler talk, because like normally you'd be like talking about something for like a really long time, and now you binge watch it on a weekend, and if somebody else didn't do that, they get spoiled on it, so then they don't even watch it, and you watch so much of it so quickly you barely remember it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So that's like a really good point, because I've weighed that, because that's kind of the direction I was going to go with my books, was a graphic novel instead. But the way I figured I can bridge that gap of exactly what you said was, well, if it's going to be a year in between, how are they going to forget? They're going to forget what they read. Well, I plan on doing like tie-in single issues, little short stories, maybe 2 after it, just as a lead up, and then drop the next one. So there's always it's going to be, here's the big chunk, here's a couple side stories, then here's the next big chunk, side stories, and I think that would be really, hopefully, the best route.
Well, honestly, the other way you could do it, this is something that, so my brother's a music producer, and he's talking with, we had another podcast this morning that I'm working with, and we were talking with these 2 hip hop artists, and one of them is releasing their own album now, and instead of releasing it all at once, my brother suggested something that the DJ/artist Travis, I think it was Travis Scott, did this. Instead of, or no, Chainsmokers, that's what you're talking about. Instead of releasing the whole album at once, because once you do that, like, you can only highlight one single, right? Like, you can only be like, and this is our main single, make sure you definitely get a lot of spins on this. What they'll do is, if it's basically around a 12-song album, they'll release one a month, every month for the entire year. And instead of only getting, like a 2-month, like, woo, like, I'm super excited, now they carry their fans on every single month, and at the end they release the whole album for purchase. And so that's also another alternative, is even though you have all of it, releasing it on our platform would, in a dripped fashion, would also allow you to continually maintain a captivated audience instead of giving them everything they want. Because it's one of those things where Henry Ford said if you had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, not a car, right? Like they didn't know what they really wanted. Most people don't
True.
know what they really want.
No.
And so even though it feels good to binge watch on Netflix, you realize later that like now all of a sudden you're more depressed that you finished it than you would have been if you had just slowly enjoyed it over time. And that's, you know, it's something to think about.
It's definitely, you know, that's what I love about the comics industry, because I've talked with authors who write novels, and they have such strict guidelines that they have to adhere to. Whereas when they were trying to write for a comic book, they were in that mentality of, well, it has to be this way. How many pages? Like, what's the standard? I'm like, there is no standards. Like, I mean,
Like, there's an average.
Yeah, there's an average, but I said as long as you know that, you know, at least make it a minimum of 20 pages divided by 4 so they combined it, you're good. I mean, there's no like strict guidelines that we have to adhere to. So you can put ads through there, you can put, you know, artwork. I said there's nothing telling me that my comic book has to be vertical. I've actually done a page where it was sideways, where you have to physically turn the book to read it, all because the guy got knocked out and he's being dragged down a hallway, and I wanted you to
That's
that
awesome.
experience of, oh, you're reading it this way because you're
That's actually really clever.
Yeah.
Like
So,
that's the cool thing about comics is that you can do little fun stuff like that. Like what the hell was it? There's like a really old comic that like came with 3D glasses, and that was kind of like part of like the little experience. And it's like you could do so much with comics that you can't do in a lot of other.
I'm gonna try this out real quick, and then if it works, I'm gonna show you guys on here, because we did something super out of the box for Prowl. Nope, that's not what I wanted. And there it works. So we have an app for my comic. You see that?
Yeah.
So
is there a QR code?
There is not a QR code. The whole page is a QR code.
Oh, damn.
So,
wow.
Yeah. So if I hold my book up, I'm going to try to hold it at an angle. If I hit AR scanner and start, it froze. Hold on. I love iPhone.
Do it live.
By the way. I say that because I'm switching. Well, it did work. So basically, I can bring a werewolf to life right off this cover. Yeah.
That's awesome.
God, I hate this phone so much. It like all of a sudden just froze. There we go.
What phone do you have?
iPhone 10 or something like that. There we go. So
they must have made an iPhone 11.
Yeah. So if I hit start, it's basically going to be, you know, a camera. But if I bring this up, you see the werewolf?
That's awesome.
And he'll roar, and
that's so awesome.
Slice.
Oh my God, he's mad.
Yeah, so you could.
Who designed this?
There's a company out of Spain. So yeah,
nice.
We are, and we did that because we wanted to not only show like, yeah, you can interact with the cover art. That's cool, but now.
We lost you. Did you unplug yourself? What?
Am I good?
Yeah.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, cool. I don't know what happened, but anyway, we did that because we wanted to make the book more interactive. I mean, playing with the cover art, that's fun, but being able to scan pages inside and watch the page come to life, that's cool. Like it's almost like a DVD extra feature.
Yeah.
But right there, so that is something that company and I have been working with, trying to develop for comics too.
See, that's interesting. That's one of the things that Greg and I talked about a while ago, was because our comics are digital. One of the things that I had in mind was something very simple to start, and obviously this can grow to basically what you've got going on now. But the idea was like they could be flipping through comics, and then like panels, and maybe one of the panels has a guy driving in his car listening to the radio, and literally you could click on the panel and hear what he's listening to.
Dude, that would be awesome.
Because it's so simple, but it's like that, like, because that's the thing is, I think basically I don't want people to think like, oh, let's go from comic to like animated comic. Like an animated comic is just a cartoon that's really frustrating to watch because you have to go panel to panel. Think of the small stuff so you can enjoy the comic with a little extra flavor. And like that's the kind of stuff that I want to get at. Like it, like maybe like there's one scene where like it's a devastating action scene and that could be animated, right? Where the rest is just normal. And I think that having it like sporadic like that and just tastefully added is such a cool thing to enhance the experience of reading comics.
Because I with that I picture, you know, those panels that are literally sequence of events where say there's a like an exterior brick wall and then all of a sudden the next panel is the exact same scene but that brick wall is now busted out because someone blew it up. Like how awesome would that be? Click for the next panel, you click it and you literally watch it explode and then it carries the story forward. You know, or they're sitting there on a dock and it's a sunset and you can click on to hear seagulls or the foghorns. I mean, that type of atmosphere and type of experience, I think for the reader is fantastic. So
well, it's nice because if it's as simple as like a small motion or the background, you know, ambiance, the sound, I think the reason why that's so much better than like having like full on animated panels is just due to the fact that the reader gets to keep most of the ideas in his head as an imaginative, like they can expand what's actually happening in their head. You're just giving them a little more to play with. Like they couldn't possibly know that this particular beach, you know, maybe it has sea otters at it and you can hear them, right? Like just like having that little bit of extra, or like the radio, like what type of music do they have? Is it our type of music? Like in our universe, we're trying to exclusively have like indie music on it. Right, so it'll be something very unique. And so like even in our video game, there's going to be radio that you can listen to, and it's going to be artists that we've directly connected with. And so like that's, you know, I think that's something that can make your universe open up a little more, where you're like, oh, that's what they listen to. It's rock. You didn't just turn on the radio and it says quote rock music. You know, it's like you can hear what they're listening to.
I love that. Yeah, and that gives, you know, another opportunity for the indie guys to get noticed. Like, hey, I'm also in a comic book. You guys check out my band while reading this book. I mean, it's really cool. I love that.
I have another idea later when the serial killer comic comes out. He originally in the script, he's talking to my brother's cop character, and they're like having an interview somewhere. I don't want to say where, give part of the story away.
Secret location.
And he's actually like being recorded because I got the idea from that show Mindhunter. I don't know if you ever saw that. Yeah. So
I love that movie, that series.
So he's just like wondering why this guy is doing like what he's doing and why he has been like killing all these people for what reason. And I was either gonna put like recordings of that recording in the game, and then like all you do is like go up to somebody's desk, like Dylan said, like you go up to like somebody's desk and you could press play and it'll actually play in the game and be like actually play the recording of like. So I would have to get somebody to voice that character, which I could easily do it, but yeah.
Greg sounds like a serial killer. Yeah, like stuff like that would be awesome if like, because our video game isn't supposed to be like what's happening in the comic. It's supposed to be what's happening in the city while the comics are going on. So like there could be an explosion in our comic based on this building, but something else next door is happening because of it. And so, you know, we want it to be like that tangential filler where it's kind of like you know the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Like having like where there's like filler stuff where if you watch the show during the I didn't watch it up until like the last Avengers, but I do remember up until the first Avengers there was information they discuss in there that gives you just a little bit of extra knowledge when the actual movies came out. And it wasn't a lot. It's just enough so you get to feel special that you watched the show. And like that's kind of the cool. That's like the direction we're going with the game is like we want the stuff that happens in the comic to happen in the city, but the actual stuff you're involved with is the stuff that's happening around it.
That's cool.
Yeah, like there's this guy that's a rapper that's around here. His music will be on our radio and like in the comics if we can do that. But he actually is like a vigilante character because he just randomly said it like one day. He's like, I don't know if I'm like stepping on your toes or anything, but like I think this would be pretty cool because he gave us like $100 towards a Kickstarter, and like when you gave $100 to our Kickstarter, you had the option of being a hero, villain, or anti-hero, like whatever you want to be, and he like chose his like character and like his little plot line. But I was like, I'm gonna tweak that a little bit and actually focus on something that actually does happen that like nobody really talks about. So he is a rapper and he wears a mask on stage, but when he's not on stage, he doesn't. I think no, he doesn't wear a mask on stage, but he usually wears a mask, or it's flip flop,
No,
whatever.
I think that's what it was. I think like basically as a rapper, he wears a mask, so no one actually knows what the
Yeah.
rapper looks like. But then like he doesn't wear it in public and goes vigilante sometimes.
Yeah.
And even though like the people know that face, it doesn't matter because they can't figure out who it's actually associated with.
And he's actually becomes a vigilante because his sister is kidnapped by a human trafficking organization, and that plot plays into the video game.
Yeah, so like they'll be like cops trying to solve this crime, but like obviously the main scenes that would happen would be in the comics.
Yeah. So all that's happening.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's so many like little plots, but they all come together in a way. And even the action scenes, like we actually have been like talking about, like we're gonna act out the action scenes if we can, like somehow. He's like in Nashville, I'm in New York, so like trying to do that. I don't know how that's gonna get done, but I would like to do that because he like when he was living here, he was like choreographing like these couple moves that this one character that's comes later in the comic story. He's holding like his bowl of cereal and he has a spoon, and then he has this like thing like if people just jump out at him, and if they can take him down, they become the new like leader of this. And there's a guy that jumps out from like a doorway from like the darkness, and then like he goes to attack the guy that's eating cereal, but then he just takes a spoon and then just like breaks his wrist, and then he just like walks away and just starts eating cereal again, just keeps walking. Yeah, so I'm like, okay.
Yeah, from watching too much action movies as a kid and then taking martial arts for like 5 years as an adult, I was like, man, I got so many freaking ideas. Like that would like I don't want to work for somebody else, but if I ever did, like a really amazing dream job would be the choreographer for like movies like John Wick and stuff like that. Like that would just be amazing.
Yeah, so
That would be.
there's a whole action scene, like that's a large action scene that happens in the second issue of Ink, unless if he takes it out. But it's pretty sick. Like I came up with that, like I was like rereading it and I was like, oh, that's awesome.
I am pretty awesome.
No pressure to make sure it's pulled off right.
Well, that's the cool thing too. Like same with like the what's it called, the background scenes based off the video game to make that easier. I wanted to get legitimate choreographed scenes, so whatever fight scenes happen, because I have my brother here, he'll be the test on me, but essentially I would get snapshots of moments in time that I know are visually appealing and part of an actual technique. And so like that's the cool thing. Like I've learned I studied Jeet Kune Do, which is like a hybrid martial arts of like several different martial arts, and my instructors also just taught us other martial arts. So like I have like this huge array of like random fighting styles in my head, and I'm like, oh, it'd be awesome like to, because I know when something looks cool and is effective. And so like I want to actually capture those moments in panels, which are very difficult for an artist if they don't know that. So I want to literally get like a screenshot moment, like right there, draw that, but make these two characters the people that are doing it.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to do all that. Obviously ink, he's magical, so unless if we know a magician, but yeah, it's pretty awesome. But I was having that issue with I started writing the third issue of the Seer Chronicles, even though like we're nowhere near like having to do that. But like I got bored at work and I didn't want to just watch random movies or whatever, so I started doing that, and now I'm at a crossroads of, do I make the third issue really like a big issue with multiple plots? But at the same time, if you have too much going on, then people are going to get confused. So there's that. Or I can do issue 3 and 4 scripts and just like figure out what will go in which issue. So I don't know yet. But
yeah, I think writers don't get enough credit for all the thinking you have to do.
Yeah, because I was actually writing notes, and this time, no other time that I've wrote a comic yet, but this time for Seer Chronicles issue 3 and 4, or maybe just 3, I actually put questions for Dylan. And it's like, there's a funeral that needs to happen, and in my original story, the funeral never happens. Like, I, for some reason, just never mentioned a funeral for the character, the main character. Like, he dies in the very beginning, but where's the funeral? So
I never even thought about that, and he's walked through the whole script with me. So like that's the fun part is the first set of Ink and Seer Chronicles I didn't edit until the artwork was done, because I didn't realize he was getting the artwork done essentially, basically as I've been going through them, that's like my question like 90% of the time. I'm like, how did this happen? Like, why is this guy here right now? Like, what? Like, he was across town 15 seconds ago, right? Like, why is he over here now?
Yep.
And so, like, the second issue of the Seer Chronicles, like Greg knows, is going to be like phenomenally better than the first. And it's not because like I changed the core plot. It's like just those little details that pull you in to the story the whole time. So when you get the next series of Ink writings, like you'll see the difference where we started getting in detail about like panel views. So I have where is it? I have this book on how to draw comics the Marvel way, and it's
he's got that too, probably.
you got it?
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah, right.
You have to have this.
Yeah, and inside there's it talks about the various panel directions, locations, and depths. So there's like the mid shot, long range, panoramic, bird's eye, worm's eye, things like that. And now, because I know that terminology, because like I just didn't even have words for them. Like bird's eye was probably the only one I actually knew. Like I didn't even know worm's eye was like the term. Like I was just like from the bottom.
So this is a good one too. It's called Comic Book Design, and then this is a have to have.
How to self-publish comics, not just create them. I like that. Nice.
Yeah,
I'll have to grab those later.
Yeah, I literally have a library up here of from everything from illustrating, dynamic characters to how to publish, and it's
awesome. Like one of the things I've been having Greg do is I had him read 1984, since for whatever reason he somehow made it through life without having to read that book.
Right.
Yeah, and so like there's that book. There's a couple other books I've been trying to get him to read for like character development. There's like the hero's journey. What's the other one I got over here? It's like the character story arc or something like that.
Oh, that's on my bookcase. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you got to read that one. But basically, like just knowing that extra stuff that you don't think about, like we were saying before, like having a backstory to a character that's almost irrelevant is sometimes hugely impactful. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to drawing, like he would just kind of hand the artist the copy and be like, hey, make it magic, right? And now, like we're like, if we think that it's even remotely relevant how this is drawn, we describe it. So we've made it so that every single panel that needs this, at least, not all of them, I would say the majority of them, like maybe 80 to 90% of them, we give the viewpoints, so where in the scene we're looking, and then whether it's bird's eye or worm's eye, and if not, it's, you know, we just don't mention it. And then whether it's a close-up, mid-shot, long shot, and whether it's panoramic or not. And essentially, by giving those details, it's so much easier even in our head to picture what it should look like. So when we get the artwork from the artist, we can go, oh, no, that's incorrect. As opposed to like, oh, my stuff got turned into art. That's awesome. Which is kind of what happened with Greg in our very, very first rendition of our comic. He was just so excited to see what he wrote down be drawn that he kind of like missed the fact that it wasn't drawn correctly.
Yeah.
If we do that, you know, that is such an easy thing to do. But once you start putting some of those guidelines in place and you know, those rules in play, like this looks great, but it's not going to tell the most effective story. It's not going to relay what we need. So yeah, that is super helpful for at least me.
That's one of the things that I try to explain for anything in life, is that there's a guy named Jocko Willings, and he's a former Navy SEAL, and he runs a business where he teaches leadership skills to you know, huge corporations. And one of the things he talks about is that discipline equals freedom, and people think that that's, you know, a contradiction, but it's not. Because the point is, by limiting your scope, you now have more mobility in this range. Where if you're here, even if you have mobility, you can only go so far. So the goal is to get the artist as close to what you envision and then let them be an artist, right? Like, we're not going to tell them like how the shirt should be ruffled, right? Like, you know, like it's not going to be that specific. So the artist now has the freedom to know, oh, okay, I need 3 characters, this angle, the beach is in the background, and there needs to be like something over here. And now I can actually really work with that and get really specific and make it really clean. And so I think that's something that any writer or editor should be aware of, that if you're not working you know, every day with the artist so that they're aware of the whole story and context, that it's much better to give them stricter guidelines, because you're not eliminating their artistic ability, you're enhancing the part that they're good at by giving them the guidelines they need.
Yeah. It's super helpful to make those notes in the script. And I always say you can't get too descriptive. Like, the more you give me, like all the way down to, hey, there's a stop sign in the foreground. There's, you know, tell me like specific. There's a Mountain Dew can littering the alleyway. So just whatever, because I want to go through your mind. Because since I'm not there, I want to see what you see, you know? So
yeah, and an artist always has that, like, the ability to say, hey, I think it might be better if it's like this, because they've seen enough artwork.
I've actually just did that with a page I just did. They just shared it, so I think it's okay that I show it, because it's a 2-page book, and they wanted me to, on panel 2, they wanted these, it's raining frogs, and they wanted the frogs to spell out 2 letters, and the way that they described the panel, because it's a worm's eye view, and I'm like, you can't see the letters with them on the ground because, you know, the perspective won't work. I said, so can I do it in blood? They're like, oh, that would look sweet. So I did it in blood. So I mean, that's so I mean, it's that kind of discussion that I like to have, because I want you guys to get the script down and get it out, because then I can visually explain, like, well, that might not be the best, but here's an idea that we can do. We can absolutely achieve it. We just have to do it a different way. So I think that I love having that type of relationship with the writers and creative team, because, you know, ultimately, you know, we're all in it together.
Yeah, and the other thing we did too, for not for every page, because like we broke it apart by page, because that's the other thing too, is if you don't tell an artist what pages are going where, or what scenes are going where, they might be just drawing along and not realize, like, oh, this was meant to be a cliffhanger, page flip.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like that was something we were talking with a writer. Was that 2 podcasts ago, right?
No, it was literally like the last one.
It was the last one? Okay, yeah. Chris, right?
Chase.
Oh, that's what it was. Who am I thinking of? Anyways, but yeah, Chase. And we were talking about the concept of just having like a certain flow to your story. But the thing is, an artist, even if they're drawing the stuff, might not be aware of what your flow was. So it's important to first break it apart by page at least. But we went so far as if there's certain ideas we had in our head, we would actually lay out a panel, like rough, like, we want these three overlapped on the top, but like, obviously the artist can feel free to manipulate them to make it look more action based. But we definitely were like, okay, this one's a panoramic that covers the top. This one's, obviously a splash page. We'll describe those, like, things like that, where we're like, we want this to be laid out in this way because of the way the scene rolls out. So like one of the scenes in the Seer Chronicles 2, there's somebody that's coming out of the woods while there's a bunch of people in another location. And basically, we realized as we're writing this, we're like, crap, this is not like clear enough for the artist, even with our description. We need to actually lay out the panels so he could see, like, this is where it's going to go, so that it opens up to where this guy is. And so it was very fun, because I literally like threw it together in Canva, and I just was like, square blocks. And then I basically took like this yellow, like head and arm and it was torso and arms. And it was like the bathroom signs, you know what I mean? Like that kind of guy, but like cut at the waist. And I kind of just like moved him around in different positions. And if he was a different character, I just colored him different colors.
Yeah.
So like, it was very fun though, just like having to figure out like, oh, like, if we're going to have all three of these things in one panel while these two are talking, we kind of need to like tier it like this so that you could see them like that. And so I actually literally drew it like that, so you could see something happening in the background without taking from the fact that the foreground's the important part there, because they're discussing the background. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. It's that kind of thinking that really helps, and you going that extra mile, where I've had to do about 5 or 10 different thumbnails before I even got it right. Whereas you kind of went out of the way and sort of paved the way for them, which makes the book go a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So, I think that's really, really cool. Another thing that might help you guys in the scripting is coloring. If it is 2 scenes like that, definitely put notes to your colorist in there saying, the foreground panels, I want them to have a more warmer tone, whereas the background might be a cooler tone. That way it really also visually separates them.
See, that sounds interesting. Like, I wouldn't even think about that for artistry point, but that's actually pretty interesting. But I definitely do. Well, because like one of the other funny things too is that we've been going in such greater depth with this now for 2 reasons. Like, one, Greg always felt bad trying to like tell an artist like, oh, it's not actually what I wanted. Could you redo it? And instead he would just pay the guy. And I'm like, no, like, get what you want. But in the same token, like I was saying before, like if the writer or creator who tries to hire you is unclear, charge more, right? And so obviously I don't want to get charged more, but I believe people should charge more if it's unclear. So my objective is to get as clear as possible, so that this is so easy that the artist can just enjoy the work, get it done, and there should be at most like 1 revision and maybe a second touch up. And as opposed to like a complete redo 3 different times because it's not what was in my head. Like, like whenever it comes to, like website, like I was saying, like the website thing where like someone's like, oh, I kind of want this thing. I'm like, do you mean this? And they're like, not really. And it's like, all right, let's get very specific. Show me an example.
Have you watched Parks and Rec?
Yes.
A little bit.
I was going to say, if you go to my art page, I posted a clip from last night when we watched an episode. It's where, I can't think of his name now, but he's literally throwing money at an artist saying, that's not what I want. And he goes, I don't know what you want. He goes, I don't either, but shut up and make more art for me. Like, that cracked me up. I'm like, I have to post that. Like, that is our life. Like, I don't know what I want, but you have to make it, because we live that, on numerous. So the clearer you can get, the beautiful that's going to be.
I'm trying to figure out what Greg's showing us.
Oh, what is that?
I met Lil Sebastian at the Pawnee Harvest Festival.
The Pawn, Lil Sebastian. Gotta love Lil Sebastian.
I have another Parks and Rec shirt, but
Greg, I just realized that's the second time a show reference or a movie reference was in the podcast, and you happen to be wearing a shirt with it.
Yeah,
that was totally unplanned.
The last one was Yeah, the last one was the give me all your bacon and eggs.
Yeah.
That's another Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
I love it. Such a good
Um,
show.
Yeah,
we
Ron
just
Swanson. He's my
Man.
spirit animal.
yeah, we just watched that for like the, I don't know, sixth time probably, maybe more. I don't even remember. But yeah, we either watch that, The Office.
Yep.
Right now we're watching Community because I never fully saw that show, so
I never saw that one.
it's good. It's actually
Is
really
it?
funny. Yeah. But yeah, for the other comic that you're going to be working on for us, Scales.
Yes.
Yeah, we had to go back. Well, Dylan went back in the script. He's like, wait, because I didn't write that script. I gave some other guy basically like the reins. I'm like, oh, you could just write this, and then I'll pay you. So with the Kickstarter for that, I have to pay him. It's been like 3 years.
2 years.
Yeah, so we finally edited that script, and it wasn't as bad as the other character that I had him do, which we'll release that probably next year. But for Scales, he didn't add that there's like this wine bottle, and it just magically showed up like later in the comic.
Yeah, there's basically like they leave an area on what are they
Four-wheelers.
Four-wheelers, and then they don't ever go back to where they were. They continue moving forward, and then randomly they the group splits up, and this one group goes off to do their thing, and suddenly they have a bottle of wine. And I'm like, where the hell did that come from? Like, they didn't mention like there's no mention of like a picnic basket or something with them at all this entire time. And now I'm like, whoa, okay, I got to figure out when the hell they left, because that needs to be on the back of that four-wheeler from the very beginning. So I had to like flip back like 4 pages, and I'm like, is this where they leave? Okay, yes. Oh, and then they're at this one location. Do they take it off of it? Is there something else they would have had in it? And like, I'm like, I have to like think about all that stuff. I'm like, damn, like they're because that's our biggest thing, is we just want to keep it as the continuity as clear as possible. Like, we don't want it to be where you're like, wait a second, like that wasn't there a second ago. Like, I want to be the one that catches that and fixes it before that ever gets into someone else's hand.
Trust me, I appreciate that. This one of the last books I just worked on. I won't say the title, but there was a scene in the script where someone is possessed by somebody, and then something happens, and then all of a sudden the guy who is possessed gets tackled by the guy he was possessed by. I'm like, where, like, so I'm like trying to draw this script or rough it out. I'm like, where the heck did this guy come from? He was already possessed. So I had to like message the guy, and he was like, oh yeah, I should, well, make sure when this happens that he's leaving his body. I'm like, dude, you should have done that in the editing.
Yeah, I already
before
drew
you were
like
sending
6
it.
other panels I got to redo now.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't quite get this. So man, it was a headache and a half. So
Yeah, you'll definitely appreciate the next ink one then, because I know like once I'm done with that, it'll be very good. Like this year Chronicles, like that, the second one we like after like that took me like, I don't know, weeks to like edit that, because
yeah.
there was a couple times where like I'm all of a sudden like there's like 20 people in the same area. I'm like, why are they all here? Like, I get like for the plot to move, you wanted them here, but like, why would they, like, I get that now they're here, why they're reacting, but why are they even here to begin with? And so we had to like add a whole side plot to like bring them together. And we even took out like there's a scene where like our main character was going to be there, and I'm like, no, it doesn't make any sense for him to be here right now. So we removed like a whole section of that scene. Like, like that, like it's a totally different scene now, because I'm like, the plot hasn't progressed for this guy enough to be there. Like, I'd rather this happen, he finds out about it later and has to get involved when it happens again, or something like something further down the line of that plot point happens, and he gets involved. But like, to just have him there for no reason, out of nowhere, like, oh, I'm so happy I happened to be here exactly when I needed
convenient.
to be. Yeah.
How many times have we said that in a movie where it's like, really?
And that's the point. Like, it doesn't happen in every movie, and you know when it happens in a movie because it's so distinct where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, the hero came exactly when they were all about to die. Like, we get it. Like, no, like we're gonna have it where like some guy almost dies because no one's there to help him. Like, that's how it would happen.
That's
Yeah.
that's essentially how it really would. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because that main character isn't there at that specific location in the second issue, my third issue, that's why I'm having such an issue with the third issue, is because I'm like, wait, so now I have to figure out how this guy is going to leave this one building, because he's been stuck there for basically since the first issue.
Is that the main character?
Yeah. So now
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
that's what I figured.
I have to like.
I knew it would break stuff down the line, but I was like, it doesn't make any sense for him to
Yeah.
be there yet.
So
And, like, we're gonna have to figure out, like, I guarantee that based on the changes we made in the second comic, there will be 2 additional comics we have to write up to fill in the blanks that weren't originally there.
yeah.
But, like, that's cool. Like, it'll be a better story and longer story. Like, it's almost like we almost have like the opposite issue that something like Game of Thrones has. We're like, oh crap, we need to resolve a bunch of stuff in like one episode. Like, let's just make a terrible episode and take everyone's money.
So issue 3 will either be like longer than the issue 2, which issue 2 is like 30 pages or something, which
Yes, 32 pages, I think.
it's 30, and then there'll be we're adding this newspaper in the beginning, which is the newspaper that's in our comic, like the Daily Bugle.
I forgot about that. Yeah, like attached to the game, we also have a newspaper that'll be reporting on stuff that happens both in the game and in the comics. That we'll have is it the beginning we had it or the end?
No, the beginning.
Yeah. So basically, like, you'll read the newspaper about what happened in the last comic as like a refresher, and it'll talk about some of the stuff that'll have happened in the game if you play along with it. And then all of a sudden you'll get into the comic. It's almost like last time on Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
It's cool to have one of those the tie-ins. I think that's kind of what the MCU is doing with now the Venom verse, the Sony verse. They're using the Daily Bugle as that bridge, because the Bugle is referenced now going to be in Venom 2, and cool. It was also now shown at the end of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's an easy way to bridge, having some type of news segment or something that can report on what's happening, but it doesn't really have to be in. It just has to be referenced.
Even the smallest amount, like in the first or second episode of Daredevil, the Netflix special, it had a photo on the wall of the
Invasion.
Forgot the name of the journal place.
The
newspaper place, whatever it was. But the point is that they mention an attack in New York City, and then there's briefly, and then there's a photo on the wall of a framed newspaper article, and you can see the alien from Avengers ripping through a building. And that's like the only time it's ever really referenced. And that little subtle thing is like so amazing, like that like pulls you in. And then later, because I still have to watch a lot more episodes. I'm sure there's other things I missed, but like there's another time where one of the characters is in a hospital, and what ends up happening is they go, yeah, and a bunch of men in black suits showed up and were inquisitive about and they're referencing S.H.I.E.L.D., right? And I'm like, that's so awesome. Like, they clearly tied it in, and it allows them, if they ever needed to pull that into their universe. And just like, just those little things I love. And that's why, like, for these comics, like, that's what we're trying to add, or just like that little bit extra so that the real fans can be like, oh, I remember this. This is that thing that happened that one time.
Yeah, I love it. Easter eggs are so much fun to find, and I think that's just good fanfare right there.
Yeah, and like you said, Mountain Dew cans or something in the background or whatever. We instead of actual brands, because we don't want to put actual brands in our comics, because I don't like. We had a Camaro logo on our car because of the artist messing up with that, and me for not catching it. So we had to get rid of that. But so we are actually doing this thing called Create Our Universe, and people make names for like whatever the topic is at the time. So the first one was people just make a bunch of names, so like one person per name, and we need two major soda companies, and we've got like two winners for that, and those people will actually be the CEO of that company in the game, and they'll actually get like paid in the game, and they'll be
that's cool.
mentioned in the comics.
Yeah, like in the
So-
newspaper, it could be like, what is it? CEO of this thing caught in another scandal. Like
Yeah.
and it'll say their name, which like so it's a cool way to pull people into the universe. They get to be literally a part of the universe by creating an entire company, and it's not really a lottery either. Like you do have to be creative, which is cool. So people put in suggestions, and then we're like, we like this one and this one, so we'll go with that.
Yeah.
And so it's very cool because originally we had everything that was happening in our comic on Earth, and then we're like, yeah, but it would be kind of cool if we weren't limited by that based on X, Y, and Z. So then we're like, all right, well, our city's going to be more like Gotham, where it's made up, but it's still on, like in America. And then later we were realizing something else that we would get held up on, and we're like, crap, like, what, screw it. It's not even going to be Earth. It's going to be like Earth, but like totally different continents. So now it's like a whole new world. And then we're like, oh, yeah, what do we do about brands?
Yeah.
So then we're like, oh god. So like it's this rabbit hole of writing description for characters that are seen only once, and creating brands that are going to be referenced only tangential to the story.
Yeah. Like in Ink, he goes to Japan, and we changed the mountain and whatever to
Mount
like
Fuji too.
yeah.
It started with a K.
Yeah, I forgot what the name was, but he came up with it because he's learning Japanese. So he,
Yeah, I forgot the
there
name.
in the second issue of Ink, there's actually like there'll be a Japanese like speaking, language in there, from the one character that's at the end of the first issue. But
Okay.
so however the letterer does that, but yeah. Because I've seen in like this one comic by IT Comics, Impact Theory, there's like Japanese or some other language, but it's like in English, and then it says like in Russian or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's something like that in the second issue, unless if he changes it. But yeah, so he originally was going to go to Japan, and maybe it'll still look like Japan, but it won't be Japan. We still have to come up with like a world map. Like I think I
It'll
was
be
asking,
like Nepage.
but I was like asking you, or I was asking
Yeah, you
someone.
asked me,
Yeah,
and like
try
I said,
to.
a map builder.
Yeah,
Yeah, what I did was I found some D&D map, and it basically it like had you were able to select like what did you want. I wanted my city to be by a big body of water. There on the map, the tower was represented by a circle. Well, in Prowl, there's a park that has a circular rock formation as like the center point. It's called Spire Rock, and so I'm like, well, I want one of those towers because that will be where Central Park basically is. Because I did the same thing. I created a city that doesn't exist, but it's in America. So, and it's going to be there's a lighthouse and everything. So I mean, it's so I basically had I literally had to create, and I found this website, and I didn't want to buy it, so I did the next best thing. I screen captured it, and then I vectorized it in Illustrator, and now I'm making a list of like, all right, here's all the shops that'll be downtown. Here's their the retailer side, then there's the big box stores that they have because Walmart, but it's not Walmart, but they got a huge store there, and
it's like Sam Mart and
yeah.
like Walls Club.
Walls Club, something, yeah. So I mean, it's that's what I did. So I cannot think for the life of me. I'll have to see if I have the original screenshot still, and if it has the name of the site on it, I'll send it to you. But yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, because
I can't create a map.
Yeah, because like in Scales, there is a panel that shows a world map on the kid's the main character's like wall in his bedroom. And I'm like, shit, now I have to like actually, I need to make a world map. I was like, oh, I was trying to like, shy away from having to do that for a while, but it's good to like have it there because then people will actually know what the continents will actually look like because it'll play in later at the end of Sea of Chronicles when there's this massive battle that happens, but like everybody has to be in one place at the same time. So like they can't, I don't want it to happen in America. It has to happen somewhere else. So
Yeah. Well, I know with maps, and my wife's a librarian, and she gets to talk to the students a lot at the school, and they love maps. Like they will buy prints because she hosts a book fair um, every year, and some of the artwork that Scholastic sends them are maps of different major titles. One being of like Hogwarts or something, and they love that. They eat it up. So I mean, yeah, it kind of sucks to invest, and that's kind of why I was investing in it, because then down the road I could have you could open the book and there's the map, or I can literally have a
Poster.
a poster of it that's included with the comic book.
yeah.
Or I can do a collector card series where it's the back of the collector's card and you get 1 through 9 and you have the map, So I mean, there's all sorts of things that you could do with that. So yeah, it
Well,
sucks,
that's the
but
thing
let's
I
look at
think
the
that, yeah, as I said, that's the thing I think that indie creators have to be clever with. Like, aside from obviously writing a good story and having good quality artwork, it's realized that even like the old comics kind of had that. Like, they always had some little unique thing. Like back then, it might have been like, oh, you got a special ring or whatever. Like, oh, or you got this red glass that if you hold it over, it hides everything, and all of a sudden you realize there's hidden text. And just those little tiny things. And now that we have like a lot of fun technology, like the AR thing for your cover, like
Mhm.
you can really go in depth, but you can still keep it simple. Like you could have it where as you're opening up the comic, like one of them is a fold out page of a whole map.
Yep.
Like just something
That'd be
little like
awesome.
that.
I've thought of that, and I've actually talked to my printer, like, how can we achieve that? Because he's a I think I don't know, did I send you guys the link to my printer? Yeah, he's amazing. I know he's looking at getting a hardback. I think he just bid or bought a printer to do hardback books or binder. So I mean, he's trying to get up there too. So
Like way
he's
cheaper than anyone else.
he is way cheaper,
Yeah.
and his quality is amazing. And this color page that I just showed you, that's his newer paper stock for how he does blank covers and all that. I literally buy 11 by 17 with my brand on it for sequential art, because I used to use Strathmore paper. That stuff is better than Strathmore. So I'm like, hey, you're gonna have to send me another bundle of that stuff because I'm gonna be flying through it
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
So yeah, but he's awesome, and I've talked to him like, how can we get a page like that where it's got to be an extra long page. It's not 11 by 17 like you would. It would be bigger. So yeah, it's cool to get creative like that. And it goes back to what you said earlier about marketing. You kind of have to be good at marketing yourself and your product and your story and what makes you stand out.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're actually going to make Facebook ads. I don't know about it. I think he's going to make Facebook ads for that. But like the brands that are in the comics and stuff, like the drink Euphoria Fizz, like
Yeah,
we'll
like
actually
the
make
soda
things
one in
like that.
particular one. There's a company, I think it's the Jones Soda Company. I can't remember, but I know there's some soda company out there where you can pay to have them make you a custom soda. So we could literally have our soda be turned into a real brand and sell it with the label and everything. So
That's
like,
cool.
like that'd be awesome. Like you can go to a Comic-Con and have like on the table, like, yo, have you ever had Cray Cola? Like, like it would just be amazing to like have such an integrative world where, literally you can taste the world, like it's just like such a cool
It's like a marketing phrase right there. Taste the
the
world.
taste you can see and taste.
Yeah. The next round of that creator universe thing, I just came up with it yesterday. It was a burger chain for like fast food burger chain. And like I got like 10, 11 people to actually like comment and like,
Burger
oh,
Prince.
like someone's like juicy meat. Um, burgers and buns. That was actually Dylan's cousin that said that.
Nice.
I try to hide the like name, so like if someone knows like a certain person's name, then they'll be like, "Oh, I like that person. I'm gonna just vote for that one." Because then once I have all the names of the company like put together like on a spreadsheet, I then like uh fight like they fight against each other. So like whatever name people like the most out of those two names, that gets voted and then goes down into like the last like however many I need. For like fast food
Final
burger
round.
chains, it would probably be like
Final.
3. So, but that's what I do with the soda companies. Was like, do you like this name or like this name? And people are like, yeah, I like that one. So
And we
yeah,
can always use a name that lost to be our, RC Cola,
yeah. So yeah, that's some of it.
Nice.
Someone actually like gave me a question to ask on our podcast, and
Cool.
yeah, with like coronavirus being a huge thing, and Marvel and DC, like DC actually like not going to like Diamond for like printing and stuff. Like, where do you see like indie people and all of that? Like, do you think like there's a way to make them have a big splash in this whole thing?
I do, because I know Marvel and DC are now wanting to ship direct, and I know other indie publishers like Scout Comics, Image, Dark Horse, and all them. They are also doing now direct, and I think that's going to put a big hit on the monopoly that is Diamond. I've heard a lot of complaints about Diamond, but I've also heard it from the retailer side where now they're going to have multiple logins and they got to keep track of multiple tracking numbers on these orders. And, it's not a one-stop shop, which I personally like one-stop shops, but I also value quality. So if I'm placing a big Diamond order and they're just going to throw all these loose books in a box without protecting them and half of them are coming damaged, I mean, is it worth it? They obviously don't have a passion for it anymore. So I feel like right now, and I know I've looked into it myself for my books, especially with what I want to start doing with Prowl and Volume 2. I think having those relationships with the stores and owners, because it's basically the fans are what dictate what the stores buy. So if you can connect with the fans, they might lose interest quickly on the big stuff if the indie creators can really step up and say, hey, I have new stuff, this is what I've got going on.
Yeah,
And
especially if you have like a
also,
local community.
exactly. And
Yeah.
and I've been asked numerous times, when are you coming to New York, when are you coming to Florida, when are you come in? It's basically, well, you got to ask for us. So now it's like, well, start asking for Prowl in your store. I mean, it wasn't in Diamond to begin with, so it didn't affect me. But now it's like, okay, I want to kind of take advantage of this. I've got a book out there now, and if you want it, now's the time for them to reach out to me, because my shipping, I will ship as many books as you need to you, and that's it. They will come in pristine condition, I promise. Unless Joe over at USPS decides he wants to practice field goals or run over him with his truck. I mean, I can't prevent that, but the way I ship, I've had nothing but compliments. So I'd like to think I ship a little better than Diamond. So yeah, I think that I think the indies, if they're driven enough, they'll be able to really dominate.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't realize like how fickle that is too. Like that's why Amazon is so big, because they do take care of those little things. Like I buy a stupid amount of books and it's like maybe one in every like 15 might have like a tiny ding in the corner, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not gonna bother me. But if like every single order I get is damaged, right? Like that's gonna piss me off. I'm paying good money for it.
Absolutely.
And like in same with like carriers too. Like carriers also have to be careful. I remember I ordered I was on like the subscription where I was getting a box that would come in the mail, and like one time I got it where actually this particular time it's a box inside of a box, and both boxes were pierced and it damaged the product inside the internal box. It's
Wow.
like, I don't even know how they did that. Like
They
someone
were
had to
trying.
try.
Yeah.
Like, someone shooting like BB, guns or something, or bow and arrow practice. But yeah, it's definitely that's how stuff like Uber and Lyft come about, or those little inadequacies, or people don't like having to wave down a taxi, and there you go, app. Like the taxi companies could have came up with that, a year or 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they could have came up with that, and by not improving their quality, just like Diamond, like they're gonna lose out.
Yeah. Yep. I absolutely think that we can really take charge now. It's either you're going to be a victim of it, or you're going to take the reins of the situation and really take control over it.
Yeah, around like November last year, there's a guy that actually makes his own comics too, and he lives like 30-ish minutes away from me. And actually, like where his brother's comic book shop is, it's like around the corner from my tattoo um, artist. So that's just insane. But he's like, yeah, my brother wants to like put your comics in like his like comic book store, but like I want to like meet first. And I was like, yeah, okay. So like we have to like after we can actually go out without masks on or whatever, then we can actually do that. But yeah, he wants to have our comics in there and like figure out a way for him to go on our website. And there's a place that I used to work for, and the district manager of that place, his son like owns a comic book store in Clifton Park. So I remember the name because it sounds like waffle, but it doesn't. But it's spelled with a T. So
Toffle.
yeah, and it's more like a board game kind of things, like and card games like Magic the Gathering and stuff. But like they do have comics there, and he said, "Oh, you should try to get your comic in there too." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, yep, I'm gonna start
Nice.
doing that. But thanks for coming on, and
So where can people find you?
yeah,
Yeah,
Oh,
Greg was gonna.
yeah. Yeah. So you guys can find me at midnight27studios.com, or on Facebook, The Art of Adam Fields. I'm going to try to go live as much as I can here in the next couple weeks once I get some of these orders done, and have a lot more stuff to come out here soon, and a couple things it sounds like for you guys. So
Yep.
definitely want to keep an eye out for all that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for coming on and
Thank you
being our
guys.
30th guest.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Big 3-0. We're getting over the hill.
And yeah, so just stop recording.